Introduce Mr. Vellodi. Mr. Vellodi was born in 1921 in Kottakkal. He served the Imperial Chemical Industries in Bombay, Manchester and Madras, and he was among the earliest entrants into the Indian Foreign Services in 1948. He served in the Indian missions in New York, Switzerland and Pakistan. He was attached to the International Commission for Indochina, serving in Hanoi as well as Saigon. As the first Indian ambassador to Tanzania, he was the ambassador when Tanzania got independence in 1962. The rest of his career was spent on deputation to the UN, where he served as the director in the Department of Political and Security Council Affairs, later in departments of atomic energy, space, before returning to the Ministry of External Affairs as secretary until his retirement in 1979. Since then, he's been associated with many NGOs like the Guild of Service, the Banyan and the Cancer Institute. It's a great honor to welcome Mr. Vellodi today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I do believe that the program, the Ideas of Life, I think it's an excellent program because we all will benefit from something other than what we are doing on a routine basis every day. I'd like to talk today on my association with and knowledge of the Nehru family. When I say the Nehru family, it is of course confined to Pandit Nehru and Indira Gandhi. He was a great nationalist, and incidentally, if there are any of you here who have not read either of his books, the Discovery of India or the Glimpses of World History, I do, even at your age now, I do strongly recommend that you not only read those two books, but get those two books for your home library so that your children and your children's children can benefit from them. They are amazing books. In 1959, I was then with the Indian mission to the UN in New York. That was a year when Panditji, along with the four other non-aligned chiefs, that was when the non-aligned movement was very strong. They had come there because that was the height of the Cold War, and the non-aligned leaders felt that a summit meeting between Soviet Union and the United States might help in easing the Cold War a little bit, so that's what they wanted to do, to come up with a resolution in the UN General Assembly. But they could not do it. So I remember after this failure to table this resolution, Panditji just refused to come to the UN. He stayed in the hotel. One afternoon, after lunch, he usually took a little nap. So while he was taking his nap, I was watching a baseball game on the TV. He suddenly came into the room and he came near the TV and said, "What's going on there?" So I said this is a baseball game. And then he said, "Oh, I've heard of baseball. I've never seen it." And since I wanted actually to see a game, I took that hint and said, "Sir, would you like to see a game tomorrow?" So he said, "Well, since anyway I'm not going to the UN, I'd like to see a game if you can arrange it." So I said, "Yes, certainly," and I rang up the president of the New York Yankees. They were playing that day. A man called Topping. Dan Topping was the owner of Yankees. So I spoke to him and he was terribly excited that the Prime Minister of India was coming to see a game in the Yankee Stadium. In baseball, in the 7th innings of the match, when a team comes into bat, the supporters of that team stand up. It's called the 7th inning stretch. What happened was when the Yankees came into bat, since we were sitting in the Yankee box with all the Yankees around, and the managers, and so they all stood up. Panditji thought that probably the game was over and we were all leaving, so he also stood up. After a minute, he sat down. I mean, they all sat down and he sat down too. But that was not the end of the story. A week later, there was then a very famous television personality, an interviewer called Ed Morrow. He's a very famous man who interviewed famous dignitaries. So Morrow was interviewing Panditji, when suddenly he said, Mr. Prime Minister, the people know that you went to see a ball game last week. Did you like it? And Panditji said, yes, I liked it very much. Then Morrow continued, he said, but they also noticed that you observed the 7th inning stretch for the Yankees. Panditji sort of looked askance, he didn't know what was there, what was going on, what the question was. So Morrow explained what it was. And then Panditji, so typical of him, he said, Mr. Morrow, how many times do I have to tell people that I am a neutral? See, in those days, the word neutral had a very special significance, like non-aligned and all that. So he said, how many times do I have to tell? He was a very, very pleasant man to work with. I enjoyed the 2 or 3 weeks I had with him. I remember when we went to I don't know whether any of you have been to New York, there is a famous painting pavilion, exhibition hall called the Guggenheim Museum. There, there's a revolving stairs going up like that in the center of the building. There are elevators, of course. We went there and we went up in the elevator to the 7th floor. As we came up to the 7th floor, instead of going into the room where the paintings were exhibited, Panditji turned the other way and he went and stood near the parapet, looking down on that staircase. He was more interested in that. He was a man, it's really very difficult to understand him. At times he was so childish almost, so simple. He was a wonderful man in many ways. Let me stop with Panditji with that and say a few words about Mrs. Gandhi. I did have closer contacts with Mrs. Gandhi than with her father, because I was secretary in the ministry and we had practically daily meetings, particularly because when I went to the ministry in 1976, it was a period of the emergency. I still remember the first issue of the Indian Express after the emergency was declared. The Indian Express in Delhi came out with a paper which was totally blank. It was just said Indian Express. 4 pages were totally blank because they said we have nothing to print. The censorship was terrible. I found Mrs. Gandhi a very fine person. Many feel that she was a cold person. I didn't think so. I met her fairly regularly. I didn't think she was a very warm person. She was a very private person. I think so. But she was not a cold person. I'll give you one small example I've mentioned in the book, but it's amusing. My wife, Kamala, she is no more. She, even before our marriage, a few days before our marriage, she told me that don't expect me to be a great diplomatic hostess, because I do not like receptions and dinners and all that, so don't expect that of me. And as secretary in the Foreign Office, I had to attend practically every day a reception in one of the embassies. There were something like 130 or 140 embassies in Delhi. So even the National Day itself would mean 140 days in a year. And then they had the ambassadors' parties. So one day when I had gone to Mrs. Gandhi for a morning meeting, and when we were leaving, she said, "Vellodi, just stay back, I want to talk to you." And she said, "Vellodi, I understand that your wife," where she got that information, I don't know, but she said, "I understand that your wife does not accompany you when you go to the embassy receptions. Is that a fact? Is that a fact?" So I said, "Yes, madam, it is a fact." And then she said, "But you know, Vellodi, that I don't think that's good. You are secretary in the ministry, and don't you think your wife should be with you?" I said, "Yes, madam, I understand that, but she will not come, and she is not." Mrs. Gandhi thought for a while, about half a minute, and then she said, "You know, Vellodi, I think in her place, I would have done the same thing." It was very sweet of her to say that. You see, I was so taken aback. she said, in her place, I too probably might have done the same thing. Before I finish, I'd like to mention, since I am talking here in Madras, you must have all heard of the great Dr. Radhakrishnan. I'd like to say a few words about him because I had the opportunity and the great privilege of working with him for a whole month and a half when he came to the United States in 1954 on a speaking engagement. He was speaking at various universities. And I worked with him, and just one or two incidents I'll tell you. One was, he was very keen on visiting a place called Salt Lake City. Have you heard of the Mormons? This is a sect of Christians, the Mormon community in Salt Lake City, and their church they call the Tabernacle. Salt Lake City, the Mormon Tabernacle, has a fantastic choir not consisting of small children but of grown-up people selected from all over the world. They've got a group on a roster of about 400 or 500 people. And it's a fantastic choir. So they were singing these various hymns. When Radhakrishnan was sitting there, he was not supposed to speak at on that occasion. But after the hymns were over, the president, somebody came to him and said, "Mr. Vice President," he was then the Vice President, "would you be gracious enough to address the congregation?" So Radhakrishnan was always ready to speak. He said, "Yes, I'll speak, but I am not prepared," etc., etc. He went up to the podium and he said, "Friends, I'm so happy to be here," etc., etc. I was listening to the choir singing, the beautiful, the divine choir singing by your choir and the great organ there. And the last hymn that you sang started with the words, he remembered all that. You see, he always got things in his mind, just kept it there for opportunities to speak. You see. So he had that registered there. And that hymn, the words were you there when they crucified our Lord?" There's a hymn that went to that. So he said that, and he said, he took off from that and he said, "We are still here when they are still crucifying our Lord on the altar of," then he went on to talk about on the altar of Calabar and illiteracy and things like that. So he was just a fantastic speaker. Well, that's about all I wish to say. Most thankful to you, Sudha and Deepa, who asked me. I think these occasions are very good because it does give you something different from what you do on a normal basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming here today.